Hey, welcome to episode 213 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. This episode is called Survivors, and oh my gosh, you're in for a treat. My two guests both have epic stories, but I don't want to spoil that. So I'm going to talk about the unexpected just for 1 second. Like about 11 last night, I suddenly hear raining hard, and I hadn't been watching the weather, and it's been dry for months, and got rain last night, and it's still raining this morning. The opportunity of this rain when we could be having drought is amazing. The opportunities we take and the opportunities we choose to take and choose not to take really define major parts of our life. Sometimes the opportunity is going for something that seems abstract and like we won't make it. And sometimes the opportunity is saying no more to something we're in and moving forward with our lives. Believe me, my guests will have so much more to say about these things, and I'll tell you a bit more about them. But first, this.
Today's guest, Holly Hoffman and Margie Walker.
Okay, welcome back. I met Holly Hoffman of, check this out, Survivor fame a few months ago when we were both speaking at the same conference. I found myself in awe during her presentation, cringing consistently as she recounted the challenges she undertook in order to achieve what she did on the show. Her determined focus on seizing the unlikely opportunity before her inspired me deeply. In her talk, she mentioned her mom, Margie, as a great inspiration. This is because, like Holly, her mom is also a survivor. Margie Walker endured, who I'm just meeting today, endured horrendous abuse at the hands of her husband, who was an alcoholic. After broken promises and failed attempts at rehab, problems got worse. He began gambling. Sorry. But, and this is not the end of Margie's story. Margie found the courage to leave him and begin a new life with her 3 children, who all had to get jobs to support each other, even Holly, who was in 6th grade at the time. It wasn't easy, but they managed to survive. Despite all the struggles, obstacles, and setbacks she faced, Margie never gave up and has gone on to live a wonderfully abundant life. She is a supportive mother and grandmother who continues to inspire her family. Without further ado, please welcome Holly and Margie.
Oh, Jason, you're so kind. Thank you. That was a very nice introduction.
Thank you both for being here. I'm in awe to be with two incredible people for the next hour.
Oh, well, we're very honored to be on your podcast.
I have to say, during the last day or so, I've been, where do I saw there's so many things to talk about, but then, Holly, I think I'm going to start where you start your presentations.
Mhm.
You don't start your presentations immediately going into all your excuse me, speaking of the unexpected. You don't start your presentations immediately going into all you overcame on Survivor, all the challenges you endure, which are epic.
Yeah, that kind of leads up to my story. That's why I start my story the way I do, because it's just that it's a story, and it just escalates throughout my program.
But you don't start your presentation with Survivor at all. And you don't, or at least when I saw it, and you don't start talking about your amazing speaking career or the 3 books you've written. You started your presentation by showing pictures of your kids and grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important to you to start your presentation there?
I just feel that I want people to know that, I have a great family. And even though you don't sometimes in life have everything, that, that's really what's most important: family and friends and the relationships that you have with people. Someone can have everything that they want in the world, materialistic wise, but when it really comes down to it, it's the relationships that you have in life that are the most important. And that's something that I did learn on Survivor, and I speak about that later in my program. But I also kind of like to start out with my grandkids and my kids, because I talk about my son being a lawyer, my daughter being a doctor, my other daughter works for her husband who's a dentist, and then I kind of make a little joke out of it, that I have 2 doctors in the family, a lawyer and a dentist, and then I'm convinced I'll never have to go into assisted living. And that just kind of starts with a little bit of a laughter. And I think that is so important when you're doing a program, is to start with a little bit of laughter, because everybody likes to laugh.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Margie, I lost track of the generations. You're a great grandmother.
Yes, I am.
What?
9 times.
What?
I have 9 great grandchildren.
9 great grandchildren. How many grandchildren?
7.
And how many kids?
I had 3 wonderful, amazing children.
Oh wow!
And then Holly.
Of course, you would only say that when I'm sitting here. No,
What do you like? What do you like about being a mother, Margie?
Well, Jason, I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wouldn't be for my 3 wonderful children, who were very supporting, understanding. They always went to church, Sunday school. They were brought up in a hard family, with no dad around and things. But right now, to this day, I am so blessed with what I have, and it's because of my 3 amazing children that always helped me along, and we stayed together. We supported each other. We gave each other love. And most of all, we always had our faith together.
When you say you wouldn't be here today with all your children, what do you mean, Margie?
Well, I mean, they were always there for me. They never separated me from anything else, and sometimes I thought more of myself or what I didn't have or what I had to do, to work 3 jobs and whatever. But they always helped me out. They were my support. That's why I survived.
Well, I hadn't expected to go here right away, Holly, but it reminds me of being on Survivor. You didn't survive on Survivor alone.
Correct.
You you had family.
Yeah. Even though it was, you knew it was after 39 days, it was over. And even though you're playing a game for $1 million and you have to be strategic and you have to vote people off, you still become friends with these people. And that's what's, when you play the game of Survivor, you do still build those relationships. And when you take that into the real world, any family is going to have conflicts. You're going to have conflicts with your friends, just like we did on Survivor. And you have to work through those conflicts and you have to work through those challenges, because that's how you move forward. If you don't, you're stuck. And, what I went through as a child, my mom and my 2 brothers and I, we realized that this was a challenge in our life, but we still had to move forward in that challenge.
So this is to both of you. So many people, including me at times, have just felt like so overwhelmed by a challenge that it seemed like impossible to get out. I get the image of sorry because we're heading into winter, but I get the image of being in the middle of January and then being sub-zero weather and then being snow, and it seems so impossible that spring will eventually come. In the middle of that January, when doing Holly, when you were a kid, and Margie, when you were, you know what I mean, when you were mom of young kids, when you were in the middle of that January, how did you keep the faith and the determination that spring would come?
The snow melts. And that's kind of how, when you're in the middle of the January, you have to remember there's only one way to go, and that's to get warmer. And the snow is not going to stay there forever. And the blizzards are going to go away. So you have to look and realize there's light at the end of the tunnel. Even though sometimes in life you feel like there's not, there is. Snow does not stay forever. Bad times do not stay forever. The most important thing is not to give up, go through them, and continue to go.
But Jason, those snowy days, that's when I could get those 3 out and get them in the snow and play in the snow so they could get rid of some of that energy, So they always had fun playing in the snow a lot too,
So that's an incredible point, Margie. Incredible. Like often we think of being in the midst of a horrible challenge as just being miserable, but then there's also the part of like literally playing in the snow.
Yeah.
Can you say more about finding small joys during this really what must have been just a immensely hard time of your life?
Well, you look ahead. You look ahead to say there is better coming. And that's, I think, why you have a stronger faith to know that things are going to get better. Oh, you got to always have a little rough stuff there to make it better, And that's what we did. We played games. We Oh no, that was our number one game. So we had time. We spent time together. I mean, there were times, yes, because I worked more, but my kids were. I wouldn't be here today if it wouldn't been for my 3 children.
Mm. So Holly, you had a very. I want you to tell two stories. So, first, please tell the story of the fancy shoes.
Jason, I knew you were going to bring that up.
And then please tell and then go into the story of your lowest moment on Survivor when you wanted to leave the game.
Well, I think, first of all, I should just, for the listeners and those that don't know what Survivor is, Survivor's a reality show, and you have to apply, and then you have to go to a casting call, and then you're selected. And I sent in a video and filled out the application, not expecting to make it. I just thought, I'm just going to do this just to see what happens. And I actually kind of forgot about it for a while because I didn't hear from them for 8 months. And then when they called, I made it. And basically what they do is they drop you off in a jungle, and you have 2 tribes. And now it's kind of changed a little bit. But when I played, this is how it was. And it was 39 days, and you had to survive in a jungle. We were in the jungles of Nicaragua. And I actually thought, Jason, it was fake. I watched this reality show at home, and I would sit and I would think, this is so fake. They don't put these people through this. And then I got out there and I realized it was not fake, that you actually do sleep in the jungle. You don't have toilet paper. You don't brush your teeth. You don't have a cell phone. You don't have a computer. You are literally dropped off with the clothes on your back, and you have to survive with all these people from all different walks of life, with all different personalities. And I had a complete meltdown. And I know when my family and friends saw that happen to me on national television, a lot of them were like, did they make you do that? And did they tell you to act that way? And I'm like, no. Unfortunately, mental health is a big issue right now in society. And when people see that, when I did have a breakdown, it happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens in all different situations. And unfortunately, it happened to me on national television. So I wanted to quit. I hit day 5 and I was just done. And there was a gentleman on my tribe that, he kind of got under my skin. And he was very, very wealthy. And he was bragging about, the cost of everything, even the cost of his pants and his shirt that he was wearing on Survivor. And it just started getting under my skin. And so he had these $1,600 pair of alligator shoes. So I stole them and I filled them with sand and I threw them in the ocean. And that was wrong. And I do talk about how too many times in life we let other people's words affect our actions, when in all actuality, we need to just kind of step back at times and breathe and say, okay, why do I feel this way? And so that was not right. And Jimmy Johnson, the former NFL football player or football coach for the Dallas Cowboys, was on my tribe. And he actually applied 3 times to get on the show. He's a huge Survivor fan. And he encouraged me to stay. And, that tells you a lot about his character as well, because your goal is to vote people off and get people out of this game. And he was encouraging me to stay. So the big lesson that came from that is we are all sitting on that log at times in our lives. And he actually, I should back up, because he and I were sitting on a log and he was encouraging me to stay. But it's how you get up off that log and how you persevere and keep moving forward. And I had a huge struggle at the beginning of that game. I didn't want to be there. I didn't think it was real. I didn't feel like I fit in with my tribe. And those are all things that we deal with in the real world of the jungle. We all have those situations, and it truly is, how do you get up from that log and move forward?
Wow, that so many dimensions. It is fascinating because in 30, how many days were you that?
You have to try to survive 39 days.
So that 39 days is just such a microcosm of the ups and downs and great challenges of life.
Oh, 100%. And it's only a reality show, and you know that it's over in 39 days if you make it to the end. But you also have to realize that you have to keep going. And so it does, when you throw it back to the real world and you relate it to the real world, it is almost like the real world, because we all face those people in life that get under our skin and say words to us that we don't like. And how do you deal with those people, and how do you continue to go forward?
And sometimes the challenges last a lot longer. Like Holly, I mean, like I said, I just kept cringing as you were presenting because your challenges were so enormous and so, to me, so literally uncomfortable. But and sometimes challenges last much longer. Margie, how long were you dealing with with a challenge of having a significant other who was abusive? Roughly how long?
Well, my oldest son Sean was around 12, so 12. So the kids would have been like around 10, 11, and 12 when I finally kind of had to make a decision. They're not easy. You always think of something yet that can come forward and get better, but then alcoholism is a very, very sad thing for people to go through, because so many other challenges come along with that also.
But that's why I relate my mom to my story, because I knew in 39 days my challenge was done. My reality show, my show was over. And when my mom was going through this, we didn't know how long it was going to last. We didn't know how long we were going to deal with it. We didn't know how long we had to survive. But that's why I also say in my program that my mom is the true survivor, but it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. And anyone can be faced with a challenge in life, but are you just surviving through it, or are you using it as a learning experience? Are you using it as growth, and are you thriving through it? And that's hard to kind of accept that, but it's really the truth about thinking about, how is this making you grow, and how is this making you a better person?
What you're saying, Holly, it almost sounds like finding purpose and meaning in the challenge.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like for example, when you were in the midst of Survivor and sleeping on the ground, no toilet paper, on and on. What purpose did you create for yourself?
I knew that if I took one day at a time, I would eventually try to get to that 39 days. And it was really my mindset. Too many times we let our mind overtake our thoughts, and our thoughts take over our actions. And it's really setting that mindset and saying, okay, I'm going to play this game, not one day at a time, but 1 second at a time. And that's kind of how life is. We let our minds control our actions, and then our actions control our words and so forth, or I should say our words control our actions. And that's something that's hard in life, is to step back sometimes and just think about things before we talk, or think about things before we act. But when you are in the middle of the jungle, it rained the first 17 days we were out there.
It rained the first 17 days you were out there.
Yeah, and isn't it unfortunate that today you talked about rain and that it's raining? So just think about going outside now and sleeping on your front lawn for 17 days in a row in the rain. And you would lay in your hut, and our hut was so poorly built that it would just rain through our hut. So you just lay there and it would rain on you, and you'd lay there and you just shake uncontrollably because you were so cold and your fingers were shriveled up. But you just had to tell yourself, you had to mentally tell yourself, you know what, I can do this, and I just have to keep going forward.
So when you're mentally telling yourself that, what do you do when thoughts come in that say, I can't, I should just quit? What do you do with those naysayer thoughts?
Well, in my case, Jason, this may sound kind of, because this isn't the real word, this one, but when those thoughts would come in my mind, all I would think about, listen, if I get to the end, I could win $1 million. And so who doesn't want to win $1 million? But I would just try to erase those thoughts and say, you know what? I got to get to the end. I got to keep going. I can't think this way. And I did have a rough start, but I also had to remember that I had to stay true to myself. Even though it was a reality show, I had to stay true to myself and what I was doing.
Speaking of rough start, before you even got, I'm shaking because I don't want to think about this. Before you even started the actual challenge, you got a rash, right?
I did.
Please talk about that.
Okay, well,
I don't want to hear about it.
We're going to back up a little bit. When I got accepted for the show, then they flew me to Miami, and then I was there one night, and then from Miami we flew to Nicaragua, to Managua.
Oh, did they let you keep your cell phone and stuff in Miami?
No, they took my cell phone away, my computer away. So when we flew to Nicaragua, into Managua, we didn't have any technology. And then we were actually
just one sec. Margie, what was it like knowing that your daughter was in Nicaragua and you had no way of getting a hold of her?
It was rough. I sometimes imagined, I tried to think where she really was at, and sometimes I'd be out in the yard mowing the yard, and I'd see these birds, these doves fly over me, and I thought, oh, they're trying to tell me something. Yeah, but I knew she was tough and she could do it.
So back to your story, you have to leave all your connection to everyone you know in Miami.
Yes, everyone was, yep. I didn't have a cell phone or anything. So then when we got to Nicaragua, we actually stayed at this resort for 6 nights. Couldn't talk.
That sounds plush.
It was compared to being in the jungle. However, it was a very nice resort, but we had to sleep out in the jungle in these individual tents because they didn't want us talking to any of the other contestants before the game started. They didn't want us to be making like these pre-game alliances. So they warned us about this bug in Nicaragua, and it was called the blister beetle bug.
No.
I was sleeping in my tent. One landed right here in the middle of my arm, and I must have bent my arm like this, and it bit me. And I got this huge blister on my skin. So going into the game, I already had an injury. And I'm like, you get injured playing this game, and I already had an injury before the game started. So that's something that I kind of had to overcome as well. And is overcome that mindset of thinking, okay, I'm going into this game with an injury. How is this going to affect my game? And just thinking to myself, I just have to pretend it's not there. I have to get it out of my mind that it's something that I just have to play the game with.
As you say that, how often do we as humans let a perception of our weaknesses talk us out of the game before we started? You could have like said, hey producers, hey people, I have this injury. I need to go home. I need medical attention now.
Yeah, we do that all the time in the real world, and that's because we have a tendency as humans to go to the negative instead of the positive. And with 80% of our thoughts being negative every day, we have to just turn to the negative. And even I've heard that we've all heard the saying, out of everything bad comes something good. We don't realize it at the time that, oh yeah, when we're going through a challenge in our life, a death in the family, or anything, loss of a job, or we have to get up and move our family somewhere. Those are all challenges, relationships. But you have to remember, out of all bad, something is going to come out of it good. And I know you're thinking, okay, what's going to come good out of going onto Survivor with an injury and a huge big bug bite on your arm that became like a raw open sore on your arm?
God, no.
It was actually, what would be good out of that? Out of that was proving to myself and to everybody else that I could play this game with an injury, and it didn't get infected. It actually was healing. So I made it through.
So this is the episode of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast where Holly makes me cringe. Margie, what was the time, that time like where you at last assessed what was took stock and you took the opportunity to leave to say I want a different pattern for my life?
What made you say?
Jason, I don't think I ever had that thought. I mean, I had family that supported me, but most of all, I knew all I had was these three wonderful kids that I had to, we had challenges, but I mean, that's life. And there were other families in the same town where we were with my three kids, and they had a lot of that going on too. And some of theirs was even worse because they didn't have a decent place to live. They had hardly any decent clothing, where my three had a home, they had food, they had their clothing, and they always needed the best tennis shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's just the way we were. But see, look at how positive my mom is. Even after, living in an abusive home, growing up in an abusive home, and I relate this in my story, and it towards the end is, survival is too often our default, where thriving is not circumstantial. It's really a choice. So every day you have a choice. Are you just surviving or are you thriving? And even though we lived the way we did, we didn't have a car. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a house. My mom had a job. We had a job. So instead of my mom looking at the negative, all that of what we didn't have, she was always the type of person that would look at what we did have. And one specific thing that I always remember my mom saying, it's not what you have in life, it's who you have in life. And, that's life. And too many times life is too materialistic and we look at what we have. You could have the best of everything, and you could have the best car, a beautiful car. You could have the biggest home. You could have the most money, but you could be the most unhappiest person ever. So happiness comes from within. It doesn't come from what you have.
So you speak to a lot of companies and businesses, right, Holly, as part of what you do.
Yes.
How do you like the businesses, of course, are designed to make money? How do you instill in your audiences the idea of really valuing the people?
Well, you don't build a business, you build people, and people build the business. And if you don't have the right people, your business is not, it won't be successful. Have you ever walked into a store and there's someone behind the counter and they're like, "Good morning. How are you?" I could mention 3 or 4 stores that I've walked into and they're smiling and they're like, "Nice to see you today. Welcome in." And then have you ever walked into a store where there's someone behind the counter just standing there not smiling and they just look at you and they're like, "I don't like my job. I don't want to be here." Which store would you rather go in?
The first one by far.
So, that's what I tell people when they're having a business. Customer service is wonderful, but it's also your people. It's also the people that you have in the store that make the business.
So unless we really nourish the people around us, there's no sustainable business over the long haul.
Correct. Yep. You have to have the right people, and that's why even I go in and I do team development and I talk to them about, getting along with people. And there's days when we don't. Look what I did on Survivor. I didn't get along with everybody, but I knew to get to the end I had to. And so, you're not always going to be right. Life is about compromising. Life isn't about ego and thinking that you're always right. It's always about compromising. That's actually with anything. Compromising comes with family members. Compromising comes with a spouse. Compromise comes with your company. So compromising is huge in everything that you do.
Margie, what was it like seeing Holly when she got off the plane returning from Nicaragua in Survivor?
Well, this mom had a lot of tears because she looked very weak. She had lost a lot of weight, but coming off of that, coming home back to where we picked her up that evening or afternoon, she still had that smile. Still had that smile, and that's and she got tough after that. She got better, she had to take care and build herself up, but she did. That's why she's here today.
So you alluded to this a bit ago, Holly, but please talk more about the beginning of finding this opportunity. Were you like completely confident the moment you came upon the opportunity that you would be on Survivor?
No. In fact, when I got the call, when I applied and I got the call from the casting director in Los Angeles, I thought it was a joke. I thought somebody was playing a joke on me. And I'm like, oh yeah, they would never call me. And then a couple days later, the same number came up on my cell phone and I thought, oh, maybe this is the real deal. And after they called me and told me that I made it the day before I was supposed to leave, I was going to back out. I was like, I can't. And that, one of the number one things that holds us back from doing things in our lives is definitely fear. And that's where I was. Fear of the unknown. That's why a lot of people don't take opportunities. That's why a lot of people don't step out of their comfort zone, because they think they can't do it. They're fearful. And I had a great circle. And in life, we all have circles. We have professional circles, we have personal circles, and it's the people that are surrounding you that support you. And that's what my circle did for me. And they were like, you need to take this opportunity. You need to try it. As I'm thinking, yeah, you're not the one that has to go out and sit and starve in a jungle, And but I took their advice, and I thought, you know what, they're right. If I would have had to live with the decision of backing out the rest of my life, and the not knowing if I could have done this. And that's why I encourage people to take opportunities and say, if you take an opportunity and it doesn't work out, that's not failure, because not trying is failure. If you try and it doesn't work out, you can always get back up from that and say, hey, I tried it. I'm going to move to the next step. But I did almost back out. I was very, very close to backing out. And was I nervous? Absolutely. When I flew to Miami and I was there one night and I couldn't talk to people and I didn't have the support then of my family and friends, I was extremely nervous. I was scared. I was fearful. I felt lonely at times, but it's all mind over matter and telling yourself that you can.
Why do you apply in the first place? We all have these big opportunities to be on game shows or do this or that. What made you say yes?
I don't know. That's a good guess.
Jason, I was wondering why she didn't go with Dancing with the Stars.
That's awesome. Or Price is Right, anything.
Oh, well, I watched Survivor. I watched the show. And I actually thought, I was like, oh, this kind of looks fun. They get to do these challenges, and they get and I didn't think of the other aspect of it. I didn't think of the aspect of, because I thought it was fake, and I have to truly be honest. I sent in one video, I sent in one application, and we had one lady on our show that applied 17 times. So I'm a true believer that everything happens for a reason. And I believe that the reason that I was put on that show was to make me realize what this woman did for me when we were trying to survive, that she was the survivor and thriver, and showed us that, you don't really have to have the best of the best in life, but you can still thrive. And then I'm in a jungle with nothing. And it brought back a lot of those childhood memories. As a child, I often felt lonely, fearful, hungry. And that's how I felt in the jungle. And my mom actually taught me how to get through that. And if you ever get thrown in a jungle, sometimes you have to go back in order to go forward. And going back to my childhood and realizing, I had the support of my mom and my brothers and, other people, family members. That's what really got us through when we were living in an abusive home, or we were living after my parents divorced.
But Jason, before Holly applied for this Survivor challenge and things, one time I had asked her to sing with me in church. And she said, oh, Mom, I can't get up in front of people. There's no way.
Holy wow.
Yeah. She said, oh, no, there's no way I can do it. Look what she's doing up to this day, Yeah,
it gave me the courage to get up and speak in front of people. But
okay. Wait a minute, Holly. Wait a minute. Okay. So a few years before you did Survivor, you were reluctant to get up and sing in church.
Yeah.
She didn't want to.
So how do you? Sometimes we humans, when we feel we have low self-confidence, we feel life will always be that way, that we'll always be stuck. How did your self-confidence grow exponentially?
I think it was what my experience through Survivor, because actually the first time that someone asked me to ever speak, which I'll be in January, it'll be 15 years that I've been speaking. And the first time somebody asked me to speak, I said no. And then they called back because I said, no, I can't. I have no interest. And in my back of my mind, I was actually thinking, I can't do that. I can't get up in front of people and speak. And then he called me back and he said, would you just come and tell us a little bit of part of your story? And I'm like, okay, I suppose I will. There again, I stepped out of my comfort zone. I did it. And then people started asking me, and I'm like, I kind of like this. But see, if I wouldn't have faced that fear, stepped out of my comfort zone, I would have never known.
So definitely to get to the thriving you both enjoy now.
Yeah.
Margie, your great grandmother.
Yes.
Holly, your grandma, who's speaking around the world, when you used to be afraid to sing in church. What's it like getting to this level of thriving in both of your lives?
For me, I'm thankful. It's gratitude. It's saying that I do have the health to travel. I do have the health to get up in front of people and speak. And another thing was my grandson wanted to quit soccer. And he walked up to his mom, who's my daughter, and said, I want to quit soccer. And Alex said, no, Jackson, you're not quitting soccer. And then he said, well, Nana almost quit Survivor. And my daughter looked at Jackson and said, but she didn't. So, now I think, boy, am I glad I didn't quit, because it was setting that example of wanting to quit. And then I finished and almost won.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that the decisions that you make today may affect generations later. And so that I would have to say that was the biggest thing for me. Is I remember also my two other grandsons sitting in my house and watching me being on Survivor for the first time. I'll never forget it. They just sat there in awe, and you don't think about things like that when you're playing the game, that, hey, someday I'm going to have grandkids that are going to be able to watch this. And now that they can. So I think I'm most thankful for family and the gratitude that I have, and the health, and the seeing now my grandkids watch this. The other day I FaceTimed with my daughter, and my granddaughter was running around in this leopard pajama set with a big safari hat on. And I said, Jane, what are you doing? And she said, I'm playing Survivor. So it's, who would have thought that it would have, been on the hearts of my grandchildren when I played that game.
I'm starting to sense a huge ripple effect here.
Yeah.
Margie, when Holly was in the jungle, when you couldn't communicate with her at all, your words, your example, your role modeling was literally inspiring Holly to continue to play the game. What's that like, Margie, knowing that you've been so inspirational to your kids?
Well, Jason, it was hard because Holly and I, from whenever, we always had communication together several times a day.
Yeah.
That we'd call or see each other and ask how you're doing, or what are you doing, and then all of a sudden it just nothing. I couldn't do that.
But you still were very much with Holly and her. And her thoughts and her attitude.
Yes.
What's it like knowing that you were with Holly in Nicaragua, even though you couldn't communicate with her?
I had no idea of what she really was going through there. What she would actually, how she had to survive. I couldn't picture it because, I watched other Survivor shows, but knowing that she was in one of them, it it was hard for me to comprehend that mentally, to say, why did she do this?
Mhm.
I was asking myself too on day 16 when it was still raining.
Yes.
Mhm.
But that's the thing, Jason. It all came out in a good way. What we learned, what Holly did, and it's just, I don't know, it's just something we got to be so thankful, and we're so blessed.
Mhm.
So we somehow along the way, it always turns out.
So somehow along the way, it always turns out.
Yes.
Holly, I think of you extending this wisdom that's come through your mom, not only to your grandkids, but to audience after audience after audience. And in your books too, what's it like, Holly, knowing that the message that has come through your experiences and your determination, what is it like knowing that the message is rippling out to affect people you will never know?
Yeah. I guess I've never really thought about that as much as, but it is true. I mean, I stand in front of thousands of people and I speak and I tell them my story, and it never fails. There's always 2 or 3 people that I get an email from, or even sometimes more. And they'll say, you had no idea how I needed to hear that. Or your program was the perfect time in my life. I'm going through a really hard time. For me, with my speaking career, it was something I did not expect to happen. Like I said, I said no right away. And then when I started doing it, I thought, if my story can help one person, whether it's wanting to quit, speaking to a high school and a student wanting to quit the basketball team, or whether it can help a professional a professional in a job want to quit their job, improve their job to stay there. It's just helping that one person. And I don't do it for my own self ego, or my, hey, this is what I did, look at me. I really think it's just something that I share because I see the effect that it does have in some people in the audience. And I basically just get up and tell my story, and that's what I do. I'm glad I can do it.
You basically just tell your story, and wow.
Yeah, if I can touch one person in the audience, if I can help one person in the audience, that's all that it takes, is one person. And like this one helped me.
Wow.
Yeah, she's always smiling, isn't she? Look at her. Oh, she's always smiling.
It's so inspiring. So inspiring. Sometimes we minimize the power of our own stories and their effect on people. What would you say to Holly? What would you say, Holly, to someone listening who might be thinking, oh, I have kind of an inspirational story, and then on the other hand, but thinking, well, it's not that important. What would you say to them?
We all have a story to tell. And sometimes we don't tell our story because we feel like I did not talk about my childhood right away when I started speaking, because I had this mindset of, oh my goodness, what are people going to think of me? What are going to, here I am, I've got a successful family. I was on a reality show. I almost won. And then this is where I came from. This is my background as a child. So I didn't tell my story right away because I had that, what are people going to think of me? Well, we all have a story. We all have faced something in our lives that becomes our story. It shouldn't define us, but it should help us grow and it should help us learn. How do we want to better ourselves? So I think if there's somebody out there that's listening and they say, you know, how do I tell my story? If your story is just going to coffee in the morning and telling your story to someone, you may help someone at coffee. If your story is telling your story at church, telling your story at a school, telling your story, you never know how that one story could help someone else. I'll give you an example. I spoke to a group in Minneapolis, and there was this lady that came up to me afterwards, and she said, you know, I loved your story because I'm just not happy in my job. And I've always wanted to start a coffee shop. All my life, I've wanted to start my own coffee shop. And I looked at her and I said, what's holding you back? And she said, I don't know. And then I said, then why don't you start a coffee shop? Well, 3 years later, I spoke in Mankato, and it was for a leadership conference, and they had it at a church, and everybody came in, and there were all these people set up. There was this lady setting up. She was selling crafts. There was another gentleman. And I looked over, and I looked at the lady, and I knew her from somewhere. And I walked over to her, and I said, I know you from somewhere.
Wow.
And she looked back at me, and she said, I'm the lady that talked to you 3 years ago about the coffee shop. She was selling coffee at the event, and guess what? She had her own coffee shop.
Oh.
And she gave me one of her t-shirts. She gave me one of her business cards. We took a picture together. And I said, all it was you realizing you were not happy in your job, stepping out of your comfort zone. And I said, so I bet your coffee shop is very successful. And she said, you have no idea. I can't keep up. So it's the fear sometimes in life that holds us back. It's the fear of, I don't know if I can. Now, just think if she would have never, ever tried and said, I'm just not going to do it because it's not going to happen. But she tried it and she became very successful. 3 years later, I met her again at an event, and there she was with her own coffee shop.
And that coffee shop sounds like it was her survivor journey.
100%. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like Margie, you've had your survivor journey, and you've been victorious, and Holly, you've like literally had the CBS version of the survivor, many survivor journeys.
Yeah, and even though I knew mine was going to be over in 39 days, you know, in the real world, we have those survivor journeys, and we don't know how long they're going to last. But the most important thing is what we learn from them and how we grow from them.
I would love to talk to you both for hours, but just I ask all my guests this: what does doing your imperfect best mean to you? To me, doing my imperfect best means I envision the best and go for it, and when imperfections come up, instead of stopping, I try to learn from all that and move on towards the best. What does doing your imperfect best mean to each of you?
To me, it means we all know that we're going to fail, but failure isn't falling down. Failure is getting back up. And I think that we all know that we're human, that we are going to have struggles in our lives. Even after Survivor, I've still had struggles in my life, but you have to realize, how are you going to get through them, and how are you going to continue to go? I focus on 6 words when I speak, and I call these my 6 words to not just surviving, but thriving. And I think of those words every day: faith, attitude, determination, confidence, desire, and perseverance. So when you're having a rough day, or when you think that the world is turning against you, think of those 6 words and know there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Beautiful. And what does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Margie?
Well, Jason, just for that, my family, is healthy.
Mm.
I'm very blessed, and I thank the good Lord every day for all my blessings.
Mm. That's amazing.
She is amazing.
Mhm.
And then to find out more, I assume you want people to go to hollyhoffman.com.
Yes, I have a website, hollyhoffman.com. Actually, I sell my 3 books on my website as well. I have 3 books. If anybody's interested in my books or hiring me for a program, that would be great. And I also want people to know that I had the opportunity to hear you speak, Jason, and you did a fantastic job. I was very, very impressed. You're funny, you're witty, you're serious. You get people to think, you're honest, and you are who you are. And that's what I really love about you, Jason.
Thank you so much, Holly, and
You're welcome.
thank you, Margie. Thank both of you so much for being on, and may our conversation inspire many people to go on their own survivor journeys with determination and faith and all good things.
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
good luck, Jason. You're doing a wonderful job. It was a blessing to meet you and to visit with you.
Thank you, Margie. Thanks both of you.
Thank you, Jason.
Oh wow, it's just the people around us are inspiring. Both Margie and Holly are amazingly inspiring people. Amazingly inspiring people, and picture walking in the mall and seeing them and just glancing and going on. We don't know the power of the stories of the people around us. The only way we'll find out is by asking questions and getting to know them. And by the same token, the people around you who you haven't met yet don't know the power of your story. My advice: ask questions about the people and tell yours, and tell your story with confidence too. Thanks for being you. Tune in next week for another great episode. Please leave comments. We love comments. And the outro. And smile.